jacket felt heavy on my shoulders. He grabbed my forearm. His grip was like a vice. "He's watching you. He's using you as a lightning rod. When the lights go out, it finds the red. It always finds the red." The guards were on him in seconds. They didn't use words. They grabbed him by the throat and the belt and literally threw him toward the door. As they dragged him out, he reached into his pocket and threw something at me. It was a crumpled piece of paper, stained with something dark and sticky. I picked it up before the guards could see. I tucked it into the inner pocket of the jacket. My heart was thudding against my ribs. I looked out the window. The man was gone. The guards were standing outside the door, talking into their wrists. I went to the bathroom to splash water on my face. I needed to calm down. I locked the stall door and pulled out the note. It was a page torn from a ledger. The handwriting was frantic, the letters jagged and uneven. "Don't let the lights go out while wearing it. If the power fails, the zipper won't move. It feeds on the heat. It feeds on the light. He's not paying you to sit. He's paying you to die, so he doesn't have to." Underneath the text was a drawing. It was a sketch of the red jacket, but instead of a person inside it, there was just a mass of black, jagged lines. It looked like a hole in the world.
I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. I reached for the zipper of the jacket. I wanted it off, now. I pulled the brass tab. It didn't move. I tugged harder. I broke a fingernail on the metal. The zipper was locked at my throat. It wasn't just stuck. It felt like the teeth had fused together into a solid bar of brass. I grabbed the fabric at my chest and tried to pull it apart, but the material was impossible. It felt like trying to rip a sheet of steel. I started to panic. I shoved my shoulder against the stall door, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. I looked up at the bathroom light. It was a single flickering fluorescent tube. Bzzzt. The light hummed. It dimmed for a second, then flared bright. I scrambled out of the stall and ran to the mirror. I looked insane. My hair was a mess. My eyes were wide and bloodshot. I gripped the zipper tab with both hands and leaned my entire weight into it. Nothing. I looked at the tag inside the collar again. V Corp. I remembered the contract. Rule 14. The employee shall not attempt to remove the uniform until the end of the shift at 5 p.m. The locking mechanism is timed for your security. Security. That's what they called it. I tried to sound rational, self-soothing. I checked my watch. 4:10 p.m. I had 50 minutes. I just had to stay in the cafe. The cafe had backup generators. It was the safest place in the city. I walked back out into the main room. The guards were back at their table. They watched me sit down. One of them tapped his watch and nodded at me. They knew. They knew the jacket was locked. Outside, the sky went black. The storm hit at 4:30 p.m. It wasn't just rain, it was a wall of water that turned the world gray. The wind was screaming, rattling the massive glass panes of the cafe. I sat there, frozen. Every time the thunder rolled, the chandeliers flickered. Every flicker sent a jolt of pure adrenaline through my gut. I looked at the other customers. There were only a few left. A woman in a business suit, an old man reading a paper. They seemed oblivious. I looked toward the window. Across the street, near a gray utility box, I saw a man. He was wearing a yellow raincoat. He wasn't moving. He was just standing there, staring at the cafe. In his hands, he held a pair of long-handled bolt cutters. He stepped toward the utility box. "Hey!" I shouted, standing up. "Stop him!" The guards turned. They looked at the window, then at each other. They didn't move toward the door. They moved toward me.
The man in the yellow raincoat reached the box. He didn't hesitate. He clamped the bolt cutters onto the heavy padlock on the main power line. There was a spray of sparks that lit up the rain in a blinding blue flash. The chandeliers in the café groaned. "Sit down, Leo," one of the guards said. His voice was flat, devoid of any emotion. He reached for his waistband. I saw the grip of a semi-automatic. "He's cutting the power! Look!" The man outside didn't stop at the lock. He kicked the door of the utility box open. He reached inside. He wasn't cutting lines anymore. He was searching for something. He found a heavy iron lever, the manual override for the block's grid. He looked directly at me through the window. He didn't look angry. He looked terrified. He looked like he was doing me a favor.
He grabbed the lever.
"No!"
I lunged for the exit, but the guards were faster. One of them tackled me, his weight slamming me into the marble floor. My chin hit the stone, and I tasted copper. "Stay in the light," the guard hissed into my ear. He wasn't trying to protect me. He was holding me in place, like a goat tied to a stake. I looked up. The man in the yellow raincoat threw his entire weight onto the lever. Clunk! The sound echoed through the street, even over the thunder. Inside the gilded bean, the world died. The chandeliers didn't just flicker, they vanished. The espresso machines stopped hissing. The glowing pastry cases went black. The only light left was the dim, sickly gray filtering through the rain-streaked windows. The guard let go of me. He scrambled backward, his boots skidding on the marble. He wasn't looking at me anymore. He was looking at the corners of the room. The shadows in the cafe were changing. They weren't just the absence of light. They were thick. They looked like spilled ink, heavy and three-dimensional. They began to pool around the legs of the tables, creeping across the floor toward the center of the room. Toward the red jacket. I scrambled to my feet, my hands clawing at my throat. "Get it off me, please!" The guards were already at the door. They didn't look back. They shoved their way out into the storm, leaving me alone with the two remaining customers. The woman in the suit screamed. She was looking at the floor near my feet. The monstrous description, shivering. The shadow under my table was rising. It didn't have a face. It was just a jagged, hunched shape, a silhouette of something that shouldn't exist. It was darker than the darkness around it. It moved with a sickening, twitching motion, like a film reel skipping frames. It was a predator, and I was wearing a neon sign that said dinner. I ran. I didn't think about the contract. I didn't think about the money. I bolted for the kitchen, thinking there might be a back exit. I burst through the swinging doors into a world of stainless steel and deep, hungry shadows. The kitchen was a tomb. The walk-in freezers were humming a dying tune. I tripped over a crate of produce, sprawling onto the floor. I felt a sudden, intense heat on my back. The jacket was warming up. It wasn't the cozy warmth of a heater. It was the searing, localized heat of a branding iron. The fabric began to glow, a dim, pulse-like crimson light that throbbed in time with my heartbeat. It was calling to the thing in the dark. I heard a sound from the main room. It wasn't a scream. It was the sound of something heavy being dragged across marble. Then, a wet, tearing noise, like someone ripping a heavy tarp in half. The woman's screaming stopped. Frantic fumbling, I crawled backward, my hands searching the floor for anything I could use. My fingers closed around a heavy chef's knife that had fallen off a prep station. I didn't try to fight the shadow. I jammed the tip of the knife into the collar of the jacket, right where the zipper was locked. I didn't care if I cut my own throat. I just wanted the red gone. The blade snapped.
The knife, a high-carbon steel blade, snapped like it was made of glass. The jacket didn't have a scratch on it. The red glow was getting brighter now, illuminating the kitchen in a hellish, rhythmic light. Thump, thump. I saw the shadow at the kitchen door. It didn't open the doors, it just seeped through the cracks, a black liquid that reformed into a jagged, spindly shape on the tiles. It stood 7 feet tall, its limbs too long, its head a mass of shifting darkness. It didn't have eyes, but I knew it was looking at the jacket. I backed into a corner, my heart hammering so hard I thought my ribs would break. The heat from the jacket was blistering now. I could smell my own skin starting to singe. The shadow took a step forward. The floor tiles cracked under its weight, but it made no sound. I reached into my pocket, my fingers brushing against my phone. I pulled it out, the screen lighting up. 14%. I turned on the flashlight. The beam of light cut through the kitchen, hitting the shadow dead center. The thing shrieked. It wasn't a vocal sound. It was a vibration that rattled my teeth and made my ears bleed. The shadow recoiled, its form blurring and shivering as if the light were acid. It retreated into the darkness near the walk-in freezer. I didn't wait. I ran for the basement stairs. I knew V-Corp had a sub-level here. I'd seen the technicians coming up from there with tools. I flew down the stairs, the flashlight on my phone bouncing off the concrete walls. I hit the bottom and slammed into a heavy steel door. It was locked. I looked at the keypad. It was dead. No power. I turned around, the flashlight beam sweeping the stairwell. The shadow was at the top of the stairs. It was draped over the railing like a piece of burnt cloth. It was learning. It was moving around the edges of the light, staying in the corners where the beam didn't reach. My phone vibrated. Battery at 10%. The flashlight dimmed. I started screaming for help, pounding on the steel door. "Open up, please! I'm an employee! Leo Carter! Open the door!" I heard a click. Not from the door, from the jacket. The zipper, the one that had been fused shut, slowly began to slide down. It moved an inch, then another. But it wasn't opening because I wanted it to. The fabric of the jacket was tightening. It was pulling inward, constricting my chest. I couldn't breathe. It felt like a giant hand was squeezing my lungs. The red glow was so bright now it was blinding me, reflecting off the steel door. The shadow at the top of the stairs lunged. It didn't run, it fell. It dropped from the ceiling like a stone, landing 5 feet away from me. The darkness seemed to swallow the light from my phone. I swung the phone toward it, but the beam was dying. The light was a pale yellow flicker. The thing reached out a long, jagged arm. Its fingers were like shards of broken obsidian. It didn't go for my throat. It reached for the zipper. I realized then what the man on the ledger meant. The jacket wasn't a shield. It was a lure. It was a container. And the thing in the dark wasn't trying to kill me. It was trying to get back inside. A loud scrape behind me. The steel door groaned. A heavy bolt slid back. The door cracked open an inch, and a sliver of brilliant, artificial white light spilled out. "Get in!" a voice hissed, a woman's voice. I threw myself toward the crack in the door, but the shadow was faster. A cold, numbing weight slammed into my back, pinning me against the steel. The smell of ozone and rotting meat filled my nose. The jacket flared one last time, a blinding burst of crimson that felt like an explosion. My phone screen flickered and went black. In the total darkness, I felt the zipper reach the bottom of its track. The jacket fell open.
The cold didn't leave. It crawled inside. "The lights are back on," the woman's voice said.
The heavy door swung wide open, flooding the stairwell with blinding, sterile white light. I blinked. gasping for air, expecting the shadow to tear me apart. But the weight was gone. The red jacket lay on the floor, empty and gray, like it had been drained of color. I looked up. The woman standing in the doorway wasn't a stranger. It was Mia. She wasn't in a wheelchair. She was wearing a perfectly tailored V-Corp suit, holding a clipboard. She looked down at me, her eyes completely dead. Mia, I choked out, but my voice didn't sound right. It sounded hollow and distorted, like two rocks grinding together. What are you doing here? Your legs. The treatment was fully funded, Leo, she said smoothly, tapping her pen on the clipboard. Thank you for your donation. I tried to reach for her, to ask what she meant, but when I raised my hands into the light, they weren't hands anymore. They were jagged, shifting masses of black ink. The shadow hadn't just gotten inside the jacket. It had pushed me out. I was the shadow now. Containment successful, Mia said into her earpiece, turning her back on me. Lock the basement. We have a new asset to deploy tomorrow at 10 a.m.